Okay, class. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about the Neolithic Revolution, but specifically the the consequences of the Neolithic Revolution. From the last video, you guys should be able to recall that the Neolithic Revolution really comes down to two things. One, farming, and as you can tell from this other picture down here, the domestication or the use of animals for our gain. So the Neolithic Revolution is all about farming and the domestication of animals. And again, I know you guys have seen a video on it already, but I want to elaborate a little bit more on the different consequences. So I'm going to skip through this PowerPoint here. And by the end of this video, you guys should be able to answer not only this question right here, the significance of the Neolithic Revolution, but also what are the key traits of a civilization. That's what we're going to learn. We're going to talk about how the Neolithic Revolution brings forth civilizations and what defines what a civilization is. So we're going to skip through this PowerPoint because you guys know this stuff already, right? This is prehistoric times, caveman times, right there in the Stone Age. People used to hunt and gather for their food. People used to move from place to place after animals for food, right? These people were called nomads. And all of that changes, right, with farming and the domestication of animals. This is known as the Neolithic Revolution. Farming changes the way we live. We no longer have to be nomads. We no longer have to move from place to place in search of food. Now we can stay in villages, right? Now we can farm. But if we want to farm, we need to be around rivers. And the more food we have, right, food surplus, the more population increases. It's very simple. More food equals more people. Very, very simple. The Neolithic Revolution, again, is the spread of agriculture. And we're going to talk about how agriculture brings us to the world's first ever civilization. And I'm going to zoom in here. This right here is what we're going to talk about. That right there is where civilization begins. This is what we call the cradle of civilization. Now, from down here you can tell, or you can follow along, right? The cradle of civilization is also known as Mesopotamia. This is where the first river valley civilization ever springs up. So we're going to talk about Mesopotamia. Eventually, after we're done talking about Mesopotamia, we're going to talk about the civilization that develops in Egypt. And again, we're going to develop our civilizations along rivers because we need rivers in order to farm. So let's talk about what it takes to build a civilization. And it's very, very incredibly simple to understand. Here we have a graphic organizer. And as you can tell, that's 5 slots. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Meaning there are 5 traits that make up a civilization. I'm just going to abbreviate here. Let's figure out what those 5 are. They're very, very simple. In order to have a civilization, you must have cities, right? You must have some sort of spot or area where people come and gather. What makes cities a thing, or what makes advanced cities a thing, is that they need to be centers of trade. Otherwise, they're just villages. A village is where people come together to live together. A city, however, is defined by its center of trade. And that's incredibly important. So that's number 1. Civilizations must have, and I'll write it here, and I'm going to abbreviate advanced cities. In particular, these cities need to have trade. Number two, civilizations must have advanced technologies, right? New inventions. During the Stone Age, people used rocks, flintstones, they used spears, animal bones, very archaic forms of technology. All that has to change if we want to live in an advanced civilization. We will need tools um, like the chariot that you see here, this bow and arrow that you see here, to defend ourselves. Right now that we have a civilization, we probably have a lot of stuff in our cities, which means we're going to be susceptible to raids by other communities, and we need to be able to defend ourselves. Other notable inventions that do come up in Mesopotamia are the wheel. The wheel is the world's, I know it doesn't seem earth shaking or groundbreaking, but the wheel allows for faster trade and faster communication. The plow, which makes farming a lot easier. Sailboat for us to begin to use uh, the rivers for our own advantage in terms of trade and communication. And again, like I said, we need to be able to protect ourselves. So we do need bronze weapons for our military so that we can defend ourselves against our enemies. So this is our number two, advanced technology. And I'm going to write some examples here. Things like the wheel, uh, military tech. Sorry, I put teach. Um, and sailboat, right? So far we have 2 of 3. Sorry, 2 of 5. Civilizations also must, this is a must, have some sort of writing, some sort of way to keep records of taxes, of laws, of all the trade that's going on. They need to have some sort of way to document that. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but this here, this image to my bottom left, this becomes the world's first ever written language. And it's something that we're going to call cuneiform. Cuneiform is the world's first ever written language, and it is invented in Mesopotamia by a group of people called the Sumerians. Sumeria is a little city-state in Mesopotamia, and I'll explain what a city-state is at a later time. But again, in order for a civilization to survive, to thrive, we need some sort of writing system, some sort of way to keep records. So I'm going to write record keeping under our third little box. Sorry, I wrote that on the question mark. And in the case that we're talking about, we're going to call this cuneiform. This is our form of record keeping. Now, because we have the ability to farm, and we have more and more people being born, that gives us room to play with different types of jobs. See, during the Stone Age, everyone's job, right, the people's job was to look for food. I'm going to, do little notes here. Look for food. All of that changes with the Neolithic Revolution, especially once we settle. Now we don't need the entire community to farm. That means people have time to learn other things. People have time to learn other trades. So we're going to develop what we call specialized workers or specialized labor. It's a very fancy word for different types of jobs, right? Now we're going to have soldiers, we're going to have priests, we're going to have teachers like myself, we're going to have obviously farmers, scribes to do all the handwriting, merchants to sell the stuff. We're going to have artisans, right, who make clothes or jewelry, weapons. We're going to have people learn different types of jobs, and that's very important for a civilization to work. Imagine if Mercedes, Texas, everybody was a pizza delivery guy. If you wake up at 3 in the morning, uh, sick and you're dying and you need to go to the doctor, you need to drive to Westaco or outside of Mercedes because everybody in Mercedes is now a pizza delivery man or woman. Uh, so everybody cannot have the same job. It just won't work. You need a combination of a different series of jobs. Civilizations must have specialized workers that do specific jobs. Now we have more and more stuff. For the first time ever, we are going to have a class system. A simple way of defining what a class system is by looking at this pyramid right here. For the first time in forever, we are going to have divisions among society that are made up by the rich and the poor, just like today. Today you have rich people and you have poor people. So then that's number 4, right? Specialized labor. All this is different jobs or different types of jobs, and consequently we see the rise of social classes, right? Again, the rich versus the poor, the important jobs, quote unquote, versus the not important jobs. And then finally, every civilization needs to have some sort of order, some sort of balance. And we're going to reach that order and balance through what we call complex institutions. And there's 2 big ones to keep in mind. I'm going to turn on my highlighter here. These are the 2 big ones that we need to be aware of: government and religion. Both of these work together to establish peace and to keep people from behaving wildly. Um, right? Government, obviously, their job is to pass laws, right? And when we pass laws, we also have to hold them accountable. So we have consequences for breaking those laws. And these things help people stay in check from acting like wild animals. In the same way, religion doesn't necessarily pass laws, but it teaches people to be moral. It teaches us to do the right versus the wrong. And this, in turn, again, has consequences in the afterlife. So if you want to have a good afterlife, you need to be a good person. Both of these things together keep people and society in order. And that is incredibly important if you have 100,000 people living together, trading with one another, and expanding together. Therefore, temples are going to become the center for both religion and government. So, finally, here in our Venn diagram or graphic organizer, we have, sorry about that, guys, complex, and I'm going to abbreviate, institutions. And there's 2 specific ones you guys have to remember: religion and government. And they both keep order. So that is it for today.